Okay, this is Paul, and I'm continuing to work on this Diehl fan, and just connected the head wire to the housing here. I took off the old wire and soldered the new wire in and put some string to hold it there, and it's glued in place so it will hold. And I'm about to put this stator back into the container here, and we should be good to go. I believe it lines up a certain way. Let's make sure I got that in there okay. It looks pretty good. And we'll look good with the wire. Let me turn that just a little more. It'll adjust once I get the holes lined up. Okay, I'm not on it, so I gotta turn it a little bit more. Which means I need to feed a little bit of that in there. And we're getting close. That's looking better. And I think I'm about there. With those two holes. Right there. Okay. Stator's in. And the coil's connected. You can tell the coil got a little hard. Even the old adhesive material is melted right into the coil there. So, not sure if the coil has got a few shorted turns or not, but it looks pretty good. So, we'll see. But the next thing is to make sure we still have a good connection with the coil there, and I know it's soldered good. I'm just saying to make sure that the resistance of the coil is correct. So we'll check that. And this one is connected to the white and black. The green is not being used on that. So we'll just cut this off. Okay. And check the okay, that's enough to get a home meeting. And there we are, 22.1 ohms. The next thing is to put the housing back together. And since that's going to be tapped in, I'm not going to tighten this. I'm just going to drop it in here, which gives me a place to work on it. Okay. The owner kind of liked the flaked paint, so he didn't want me to worry about changing the paint on the fan. Okay. So there we have that, and it's turns freely. I'll have to grease this section in here. I already cleaned it out, and then tighten the bolt back, which will tighten this. But for right now, I want to just get it ready to do a trial run before I worry about filling it with grease and everything else. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and put this part together, and then we'll continue the video. Okay, I got the stator back in, and I put the armature in. It doesn't have any grease in the grease box. Doesn't have the washers front and back on armature. It's just sitting in there. Just basically to test the coil, and I've got it wired directly to the head, so we're on high. There is no speeds because the switch is not installed yet. And I've got this hooked to my Variac, so I'm going to bring it up slowly, and we'll see what happens here. Let me put this in here. I'll put a little piece of paper on here. How's that sound? So that you can see it turning. Let me just tape that on there, and we'll give it a try, see if how it does. Okay, that ought to hold. So I'm going to bring the voltage up slowly, and we'll see what happens. I'll let you know where we're at. Right now we're at 41 volts, and I'm going to bring it up to about 45. We're at 46. Okay, it's not turning. 60 volts. It's drawing 350 milliamps, 12.9 or 13 watts. I'm going to keep going up. Okay, we're at 65 volts. Now if I spin it, it'll go, I believe. We're at 73, 76, 82, and there she goes. So it kicked in at 82 volts. And you can see it's spinning pretty well. So got good power. At 87 volts, it's drawing 400 milliamps, 21 watts. So that's not bad. I'm going to back it back down and take this off. Okay, and now, like I said, there's no washers in there. Bring it back up till it kicks on again. And now I'm at 94 volts, and you see how quiet that is. The gear is turning for the assembly, because if I stop it, it's going to grind. There's no grease in there. Good torque. Man, I can't stop that with my hands. So we're in good shape. We got a new head wire on there, and everything's going great there. So I'm going to stop the video, and the next thing I'm going to do is run the wire and wire in the switch, pack the grease box, put the washers back on the armature, and we should be good to go. But you hear how quiet that is. It's in good shape. Should get many more years of life out of this fan. Okay, I'll be back once I get that done. Okay, I got the fan back together and put some grease in that. I haven't filled it yet. I'm going to start it up again and let you see how that gearbox works. You'll notice when it starts turning how it pulls the grease around the worm gear there. So let's kick it back up. Okay, let me get the grease down in there just a little. Just get it primed, and you'll see what I mean. You see how it starts to pull it around. See how the gear is just covered in grease? You can see it better now and there. See in the bottom there, it's just pulling the grease this way around the worm gear, and then it's pulling it this way around this worm gear, and that gets everything nice and lubricated. So the next thing is to fill that up, and it'll be running good. Okay, getting ready to put this switch in the fan, and this is a Coil switch. I think I showed it already. It's rated at 4 amps, 125 volts AC, or 2 amps at 250 volts AC, or 1 amp at 125 volts DC. And you can't, it's made in Mexico, you can't buy switches for these fans anymore. They just don't make them. They used to make one like this that was a single pole double throw, which is great for this fan because this fan has high and low and off. So it would have off, and then it would have 2 throws, which would be off, on, is the way they rate them, or in this case it would have been off, low, high. Well, they don't make those switches anymore. So you have to buy a single pole triple throw, and even these are hard to find. But anyway, this switch is single pole triple throw, so it's got 3 tabs on that end there, and this is the input here, and those are the outputs. So it has basically, it's rated what they say is off, on. Well, we don't have a 3-speed fan, we got a 2-speed fan. So unfortunately, the switch is going to have 2 settings that are the same. Now this fan is on the outside is printed off, high, low. So what I'm going to do is install it with off, high, and then these 2 lows will be tied together. So it'll be off, high, low, low, which, is the only thing I can do. And as long as you go from, like it's written on the fan, off, high, low, and then back, high, off, you're fine. If you go low, low, then you got to click back low, high to get back to high and then to off. So it's kind of sad that they don't make the single pole double throw switches anymore. The other issue is they don't make them like they used to. They used to be made where the top was grooved, and you could put them on in multiple different ways. You could just take the knob, and when you put the knob on, you could put it this way or that way or that way. They had teeth, sort of like a gear, and you could just put them. However, to orient the knob toward the words on the outside of the fan. Well, unfortunately, on this, it can only go 1 or 2 ways. It can either point up or it can point down, and when it's in off, the way this goes into the case, you see it only goes into the case 1 way or the opposite way. You have no choice. So with off, it's always pointing straight up from the flat side. Now I got it set to the high position, but if I turned it to the off position, this flat side on the black post, which by the way now is plastic, not metal anymore, would be parallel with the flat sides on the metal, which means it's not going to line up with the words on the fan because they're off center. In fact, it would be off, high would be parallel, and low would be on the other side of parallel. So slightly to the left would be off, straight up would be high, and over this way would be low on the original switch. On this switch, it's going to be off, and off's over here on the fan, but off's going to be where high is, and then high's going to be where low is, and then low is going to be well past the words on the fan. But there's nothing you can do because you can't buy the switches anymore. So anyway, I'm going to install the switch. I talked to the customer. I texted the customer and let him know, and he understands that, I can only do with what I got. The alternative would be to put a toggle switch, double throw toggle switch, but the problem with that is they're rated on, off, on. So if I put a toggle switch, if it's this way, it would be like high, straight up would be off, and here would be low, or low and straight up off, and here would be high. And that kind of a switch is kind of dumb because it just doesn't work with the words either, and it doesn't look right. I mean, it's just a cheapy looking switch. It's just a toggle switch. it doesn't have any, it doesn't have a knob. At least this knob looks sort of like the original, It's a pointer knob. It may not be pointing nowhere. It's not going to point nowhere near where it's supposed to point, but it's a nicer knob. And the switch is a pretty good switch. It has a good rating on it. So I'm surprised it's not all plastic by now, the way they make things these days. But, when the whole switches go bad, there's not much you can do. You can try to shop around and wait forever for a good used one to come out, but the customer doesn't want to do that, so we're just going to go ahead and put this new switch in and go with that. It can always be replaced if another switch is found. So I'm going to go ahead and finish putting these wires on. I put some shrink wrap on the cloth here just to keep the cloth from unraveling. I'm going to solder the wires to the switch and to the coil wires, and then I'm going to install it in the fan. And got a piece of shrink wrap here. When I pull the cord where I want it, I'm going to put something in the shrink wrap and shrink it, so that'll be a cord restraint and keep the cord from going through from pulling through. That way I don't have to use a wire tie or tie a knot in this thick cord. It's kind of heavy to tie knots in. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Once I get the fan back together, we'll do a final demo. Thanks for watching. Okay, I got the fan on, and I got the switch in. I don't have it all assembled. I just put it in to do a test. And I'll put it on low first and then back it up to high. Okay, that's low. Now remember, it has off, high, low, low. So this is the second low. I'll let it get up to speed. It takes a second for it to get up to speed. And it's rated for 110 to 120 volts at 800 milliamps, or 0.8 amps. Okay, so on low, I got it set at 117, which is roughly in the middle of the range, and it's drawing 0.82 amps, which is about right, 820 milliamps, or 54 watts. Okay, and that's going through the coil, so that's the high current draw. Now if I go to, there's the second low, now I'll go to high. You can hear how well that fan is running. On high, it is flying. I got it a little bit cockeyed there. There we go. On high, it's really throwing some air. And on high, at 117 volts, it's drawing 0.76 amps, which makes sense. It drops because you're not using the coil. The coil is not drawing current. The coil acts like a resistor. So we're at 0.78 on high at 117, which is great. Wattage is only 53 because that's the current and the voltage. The efficiency is 60%, or 60 hertz, is 60%. So that's about right for this model fan. It's a little bit inefficient, but it's not bad. It's actually okay. And like I said, they're drawing 76 amps at 117 volts. That's pretty good. So if I bring it up, the voltage up, which will bring it up a little, which will speed the fan up, of course. Okay, so right there we're about 120 volts. It should kick, okay, 120 volts, and it's 0.8 amps, and that's what it's rated at. So, not bad, 56 watts. So it's doing good, and it's doing a lot of air. The fan is a good fan. So when it goes back down the other way, drop it back to low, and you can hear it considerably. Now bear in mind that this fan motor and coil has gotten really hot, so it's not as efficient as when it was brand new, but it's doing really good, a whole lot better than it was. It's going to draw a little bit more current. No, actually it dropped down to 0.73. So the longer it runs, the cooler, the less current it uses. So we're at 0.75 amps on low, where before we were 0.82. Go back to high. And we're back at 0.8. And see it's dropping. So as it picks up speed, it drops back down to where it needs to be. And that's about where it's supposed to run. And of course, I don't have the line cord connected with a plug yet. It's an alligator clip, so we got a little bit of a current draw there. And that's the fan. So we'll go ahead and finish assembling it and get it ready to ship back to the customer. And there you go. I'll probably do a final video once I get the grill on and all that, but it's pretty much done. Okay, got this Diehl Junior fan back together, and there it is on high. Good fan, throws a lot of air. And there's low. And of course it has two lows. So on the switch, which I'll show you how the switch is. Turn it back to off. Okay. Here's the switch. Now the chipped paint, the customer wanted to leave it like that. I put a clear coat over it to help keep it from peeling, but he liked that look. You know, it looks antique, and that's what he wanted to go with, just the original look. Okay, so off, like I said, on this switch, the way it is only can go in one way. It points to high. There's nothing I can do about that. The low is high, and then, so that's high. That's the first low, and that's the second low. It's really not a big deal. I mean, it would be nice if we could have got the right switch. They just don't make them anymore. But you can't see it. It's in the back of the fan, so really it's not a big deal. But anyway, I got the fan going. It's running fine, and I'm about to ship it back to the customer. I appreciate you watching my video. If you liked it, please give a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. This helps me to continue to make these videos, and I really appreciate that. So thank you, and we'll do another video soon. Bye.